Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for attending our exclusive session for the launch of the new book, The Laws of Brand Storytelling for Latin America region. We will introduce you to the authors of this book and other bestseller called The Power of Visual Storytelling, Ekaterina Walter and Jessica Gioglio. Ekaterina Walter is a world-renowned sales and marketing innovator, international speaker, and author. She was ranked number 3 in Forbes top 14 social marketing talent worldwide and was listed by Fortune magazine as one of the most impactful entrepreneurs in social media, along with Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, Ariana Huffington, Warren Buffett, and others. When Ekaterina is not writing about digital and business innovation, she and her 9-year-old daughter are co-authors of children's books. Jessica Gioglio is a renowned social and digital business strategist and author. She has spent over a decade leading transformational marketing, public relations, and social media programs for best-in-class companies, such as Dunkin Donuts, TripAdvisor, State Street, Comcast, and Sprinkler, and is a recognized thought leader and sought-after speaker. She was named one of the top marketing leaders to follow by LinkedIn, HubSpot, and Top Rank Online Marketing. Please join me in welcoming our speakers.
Hi, everybody. It was great to be here.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from London. It's such an honor to be here tonight.
Thank you for joining us today. We have a treat for you today, so why don't we get right to it, Daniel, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Absolutely. Jess, take it away.
Yep, so I will share my screen. All right. Hopefully we can see everything all right now. We're just going to put it into presentation mode.
Yes.
Excellent.
Displays just fine. Thanks, Jess.
Wonderful. Well, as Ekaterina mentioned, we are so thrilled to be here today. We loved writing our book, The Laws of Brand Storytelling, and we've put together a presentation for you today that shares a bit more about the inspiration behind the book and gives you some actionable tips on how to tell great brand stories. Now, before we get into some tips and information about the book, we thought we would share our story as storytellers. And a question that Ekaterina and I often get is, how did you write 2 books together? Because The Laws of Brand Storytelling is actually our second book with McGraw Hill. And we actually have a pretty remarkable story. We actually met at a conference in Chicago. I was leading social media for Dunkin Donuts, and Ekaterina was leading social media for Intel. And despite these being 2 very different businesses, after I finished my talk, Ekaterina came running up to me and said, "Wow, I loved your talk. You have to come hear me speak because we really think about marketing the same way, despite being in 2 completely different companies." And I loved her energy and her enthusiasm from the minute that I met her. And what ended up happening is we stayed in touch, and we both were invited to the same conference in Paris. And because we didn't really have a travel budget to go to Paris for work, we decided that we would have a girls' holiday and share a hotel room for the conference. And you can see here on screen, this is us with the Eiffel Tower and our berets enjoying Paris. And at the end of a week together in Paris, after a great conference, we were geeking out on marketing and storytelling and all of our shared passions. We decided that we should write a book together. And that's how our first book, The Power of Visual Storytelling, was born. And interestingly, it actually came out 9 months exactly after that event in Paris. So we joke that it was a very romantic meeting of the minds, and we essentially gave birth to our first book after that time. Is there anything else I missed there, Ekaterina, that you'd like to add in?
No, you got it. You got it. This is a picture of us at South by Southwest signing our first book, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I love it. I always love it. Like when you watch some of the movies or you talk to like, your grandparents or couples, how did they meet? So we have our story of how we met and it's quite a special one.
And we have been friends ever since and traveled together a lot. So it is a really great partnership.
It's been really wonderful to work with you on both books.
Same here.
So then, the next question we get is, well, after the first book, what inspired us to write the second book, The Laws of Brand Storytelling? And this also has a really wonderful story behind it. And, I think maybe before we jump into kind of the stories and the inspiration, we actually want to go through a little bit more of kind of the definition of brand storytelling. So, Ekaterina, did you want to cover this or should I keep going?
No, absolutely. I can talk about it. So the way Jessica and I define the brand storytelling is it is the art of shaping a company's identity through the use of narratives and storytelling techniques that facilitate an emotional response and establish meaningful connections. And I think to us, the second part of the statement is a must. It's necessary. A lot of people confuse storytelling with talking about, themselves or their products, and that is not the case. The way we'll look at the definition of a brand, to us, a brand is the sum of all interactions, whether they are real or whether they're perceived, that a person and potentially a customer or a prospect has with a company across all of your touch points. And by all touch points, we mean physically in stores, digitally in any shape or form, or something that they hear about you or the company from others. So we'll look at brand storying at being the core of your brand. It is a way of connecting with your communities that share your values and beliefs. And again, that is important because a company tends to make a mistake to want to be loved by everybody. You have to define who your core customer is and who your core audience is and who would really connect with you, your purpose and your goals and what you're trying to do. So brand storytelling for us is not about creating a marketing campaign. Let me just say it again. It is not about creating a marketing campaign. It is about building your tribes and inspiring movements. Brand storytelling done right, that's what it's all about. And so, Jess, if we start going into sort of the laws that we are covering in the book from here, right? Let's talk about that because I think all of those laws shape what this book is.
Yeah, let's see what we have next because I think what we wanted to get into first is a little bit more on the inspiration and then we'll go into the laws. And I think, the reason why we wanted to show the definition first is we wanted to show you how we defined brand storytelling in the book and really that we believe, brand storytelling is an amazing way to really kind of win and keep your customers' hearts and minds. And when we think about, our first book was around visual storytelling for social media. And the feedback that we got on that book is people wanted more. They wanted to really dig deeper into, well, what is brand storytelling? How do you actually find great stories to tell within your company or maybe from other sources? And we also were hearing from people that they really wanted to dig deep into strategy, into also tactics as well, like step by step, what makes a good story. But then also, what's the art and the science behind that? So really looking through all of those different elements around specifically storytelling. And that's really what inspired us to write the second book and to go a lot deeper. So I think we'll share a little bit of inspiration and then we'll go into the laws. And you can see some nice pictures here on screen when we talked about us traveling the world together as authors. This is something that brings us a lot of joy, and we wanted to bring that personal storytelling into the presentation today because as this says here on screen, we believe that we're all made of stories. And something that's very consistent in the book is that we really believe that every person and every company has a story to tell. And it's really kind of your job as the storytelling champion within your company to help find them, to help bring them to life. So hopefully today will inspire you a bit more around how you can do that. So in terms of what really inspires us around storytelling as well is, interestingly, storytelling is core to our behavior as humans. Humans have actually been telling stories since the beginning of time. And there's a good reason why. Stories actually spark our emotions. So I challenge you, think about a day in your life or a week in your life, and I bet it's actually filled with stories. Think about the conversations you have with your friends, your family, your colleagues. I bet you're actually connecting through stories. It could be that funny thing that your child was doing, last night that you had to kind of tell your colleague all about, or it could be that you're trying to go get fit and running and maybe you had kind of an amazing win or victory on your run today. And these are some of the moments that we connect with. And there's actually an interesting reason why. So stories actually help us to better understand and empathize with one another. So we actually realized as we were kind of working on this book that if humans connect through storytelling, then, and it's because it helps us to better understand each other, we felt that this would be such a powerful way for companies to do their marketing. If you want customers to be more loyal to you, you want customers to better understand what you're doing, instead of having these very overt marketing messages, why not tell stories and get them captivated and excited around that story? Because you'll actually achieve the same goals. And interestingly, so Ekaterina and I are also a bit geeky as well. We love to research when we write our books, and we actually studied the neuroscience behind storytelling, and we found some remarkable data points that show why stories spark these emotional connections. And one of those reasons is that our neural activity actually increases 5 times when listening to a story. And another data point that we loved is that storytelling does this because it actually lights up the sensory cortex in the brain. So what this means is this allows you to feel the story, to hear the story, to maybe taste the story, potentially even smell the story, depending on what the story is about. So the next time a friend or a family member is telling you a story, think about, are you seeing the story happening in front of you? Are you kind of tasting or smelling an element of the story? It's a really fun thing. You actually realize you're having those sensory elements, and it's not something you've realized before you heard this data point. So Ekaterina, as we talked before, we do want to share with you a little bit about, the laws and the reason why we actually wrote this book in laws. So I'd like to hand it over to Ekaterina to share some background on why we wrote this book as laws and to start to walk you through some of those laws.
Thank you, Jess. What you see on the screen in front of you, and this is the meat of the book, is 6 laws, but there's actually way more than that. Each one of those categories encompasses a variety of different laws that you have to consider, different things that would be helpful to consider as you're building your content marketing or your storytelling strategy. So I will talk about the first three, and then Jess will jump in with the last three here. But let's start with who we are. So the protagonist laws is all about all those laws, the 5 laws that we walk you through in this chapter, talk about knowing who you are. It helps you think through your purpose and your mission. It helps you explore your visual identity, which is in this digital world is very critical. It looks at the ways that you can differentiate yourself and understand what makes you truly authentic. And most importantly, what you stand for, right? And that is something that you can't define alone. This is something you need to decide on as a brand and as a company, and potentially bring customers in to help you understand what it is that they value in you and why do they love you or your products or your brand for who you are. So defining that is step number 1. Now, the strategy laws, there's only 2, but they're very loaded. Strategy laws about understanding your goals. The 2 of the laws that we walk you through in the second chapter help you do several things. Create a brand storytelling strategy in a way that differentiates your company by utilizing what we call storytelling framework, right? Very important. It gives you the steps of what should go into your strategy, all of the things you should consider when you present your strategy to your executives within the storytelling framework, which makes it easier to blueprint. And then it explains the importance of considering the immersive, right, holistic and omni-channel customer approach. A lot of times our companies are siloed. People go, oh, we do this in marketing. Oh, we do this in sales, and we do this totally different thing here in finance, IT, whatever that is. And when you look at different things you do, the experience the customer has with you is very fragmented, and it's really hard for your customer to have that smooth relationship. So when you talk about the strategy, that's one of the things that collaboratively you need to consider across the company. Third one is the discovery laws. Now, this is all about finding your story. Now, those 5 laws help you find and source your best stories, and also show you how to infuse those stories into a large variety of your customer touch points, depending on the channel, delivery mechanism, etc. So here it will help you answer the question, how do I source my stories? And also, how do I not just tell my own stories, but stories of our customers and fans, people who love us the most, the best possible way? And we will be showing you some of our favorite examples. And so we'll touch on that when we talk about the Land Rover experience that Jess and I both absolutely adore. Jess, to you.
Yes. So next up we have the story making laws. And this chapter actually has the most laws out of the entire book. There are actually 12 of them in total. And that's for a very good reason, because we really wanted to, when we're writing this book, we really wanted to spend a lot of kind of time, love, and attention around all of the elements that you want to consider when you're creating your story. And the way that these 12 laws are structured, we start first with 3 kind of laws that really lay the foundation for great storytelling. And that's called the consistency law, the simplicity law, and the language law. And these really focus around kind of why great stories have consistency to them and clarity, as well as simplicity and a very specific style in terms of the language that they use. And then from there, the remaining laws really delve into the story making and the optimization process. So we go into key elements that you need to consider as you are creating your macro and micro stories, such as the visuals that you use, the different types of stories that you can kind of discover and tell across your company or your partners or your customers, as well as how to use different elements that companies do want to use when storytelling, like humor and tone of voice, and many more. So it's chock full of tons and tons of great examples as well. And then the next law that we have is around the channel laws. And we talk a lot about visual storytelling in our first book, but what we don't really get into as much is, the right visual or narrative may bring your story to life, but it's really the channel that gives your stories a home. And in our first book, we focused a lot on storytelling for social media. And what's really exciting is because of the time that this book has come out, we're actually able to bring a lot of new channels into the mix in this book. So we actually teach you kind of about the strategy of how to look at different channels, because there's very much a tendency for companies to want to spray the same piece of content across every single channel. And what we show in the book is you can tell in different stories in unique ways through different channels. So we share examples of how you might want to invest in podcasting for a specific style of storytelling, but then we actually also want to inspire you around how you could use your packaging or social media or an out-of-home billboard, or maybe even a voice assistant like Alexa or Google Home for storytelling. So there's a lot of different examples we share in kind of the channel laws, and we really kind of talk about when you might want to maximize a story across multiple channels versus when you might want to personalize it for a specific one. And then last, but certainly not least, is the laws of engagement. And this kind of law and chapter is really close to our heart, because Ekaterina and I really feel that engagement is the heart of marketing. And we arguably think this is the most important chapter in the book, because really the best strategy and compelling content will fade into nothingness without meaningful interaction around that story. And we advocate a lot in this chapter for the power of engagement, both kind of from the brand and through your customer base, and really giving you lots of tips on how you can spark that engagement around your stories, both in good times and even in a reactive or a negative situation as well, because storytelling doesn't need to just happen during the happy kind of proactive times. You actually can tell a story when your company is going through a negative situation to help kind of turn the situation over more in your favor, or explain to your customers really kind of your side of the story there. So moving into the next bit. So we've spoken a lot in this presentation about how we are really inspired by kind of the science behind storytelling, how we know that humans are really hardwired to favor storytelling and to connect through stories. But another big inspiration for us in writing this book is around companies that use storytelling to win and keep customer hearts and minds. And you can see examples here on the screen of some visuals that we love, and examples of companies that we think are great storytellers. But we also wanted to go a bit deeper into some case studies as well in this part of the presentation. So we're actually going to start with one that is very close to my heart, and that is Dunkin Donuts. So as mentioned in the introduction, I led social media for Dunkin Donuts for 5 years. It was a very sweet job, many perks in the form of coffee and donuts, basically all I could eat and drink. And what I really loved about working at Dunkin is it's a brand that puts its customers first. And when I joined the company, it was in the early days of social media, and we were essentially launching our social media channels. And what really jumped out to me is that that customers on social media were talking about the brand each and every day. You can see so many wonderful pictures here of different people from around the world, and behind each customer is a different story. And when I went on to Twitter, I would see on a Monday morning, people would say, "Oh my gosh, Dunkin, I am so tired. I cannot imagine getting to work and being productive without my coffee." Or another story from a dad who took his kids for donuts on a Sunday, and he would tell the story about how he was treating his kids to munchkins because like the little donut holes, because when he was growing up, that's something that his parents did for him. And he wanted to pass that tradition of having quality time with dad on a Sunday. So really, when we were shaping the storytelling strategy for Dunkin Donuts, our macro story, which is our overarching story, was really about keeping busy on the go customers running. We wanted to celebrate our customers, celebrate how they run on Dunkin, and really just celebrate kind of their feedback, their daily interactions with the business. And before I jump into some of our micro stories, let's just talk a little bit about macro versus micro stories. This is something we also go into deeply in the book. So your macro story as a business is your overarching story. It should layer into your purpose as a business and your why. So for a brand like Dunkin Donuts, you know, it's a very competitive industry in the coffee and donut space. You have a lot of other brands like Starbucks, McDonald's, Krispy Kreme. So for Dunkin Donuts, their strategy was to be customer centric, to really take the feedback of the customer into everything that they do around how they design the menu, how they design the in-store experience, and as well as all of the marketing and other customer-facing touch points. So when you're thinking about that overarching story, this really makes sense for Dunkin Donuts, because if they want to do storytelling around celebrating what keeps their busy customers kind of running, it really makes sense as an overarching macro story. But then, you know, here's some more examples here of some of the amazing stories we would see as well. So I talked about some of the everyday stories about the dad taking his kids for donuts on the weekend, or the person not imagining a Monday without coffee. But what about the special occasions? And this is where we always wanted to get creative, where we'd see someone who is taking a road trip across America with their coffee. And you see the picture here on screen where it says, Dunkin Donuts in hand, packed car, the move to Los Angeles starts now. And you just see the story about how it's a girl, she's starting her new life. And what's great is we could check in with her during her road trip and start to share some updates or share how she's doing. And that becomes a story that customers want to hear, that maybe we cover in a blog post or other social media posts. And then this other example here is about a girl who's just finished medical school. And she said, couldn't have done it without help. This degree ran on Dunkin. So again, these are some really great stories we can amplify from the customers that really tell the macro story. But then on the other hand, we had these always on micro stories. And this is where we could get a little bit deeper. So the beauty of a micro story is micro stories are kind of the lifeblood of your storytelling strategy. They allow you to go a bit deeper on other topics, but really what they should do is they need to fit with that macro story. So they need to layer into that purpose, that why, that kind of overall storytelling strategy. And for a customer-centric brand like Dunkin', what we wanted to do is really kind of take people behind the scenes in the secret Dunkin' Donuts test kitchen. And what was great is there's all of these culinary professionals who are behind kind of the coffee products and the donuts that come out. And we thought, this is a very big global business. Why not put a human face on the business by introducing them to the executive chef or the manager of donut excellence, which is actually a real job title, and allow him to tell you firsthand some of the new donut flavors and the inspiration behind it. Because again, it's very easy to tell a story about your products, but it's really nice to share the inspiration and put a human face on it. And another example was around the holidays. So we always looked at Christmas, at Halloween. Talk Like a Pirate Day was Ekaterina's favorite one. And we'd look at funny ways to tell stories around different holidays. So with the Talk Like a Pirate Day one, we had people tweet their coffee orders in pirate speak. So I have a large coffee. Now that might not translate so well into Spanish, but humorous. But then for Halloween, we challenged our customers to take the Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup and say who we should be for Halloween, turn it into a character. And with each picture we got, we could tell stories around that character leading into Halloween. And then last but not least, we also wanted to go local and look at different areas of the business. So as a company that is in Berlin, Indonesia, as well as so many different markets in the United States, we wanted to tell local stories. And one remarkable story happened in something called the drive-through. Now, I don't know if you have these in Mexico and Latin America, but as you can see behind the iced coffee mascot, there is a car that pulls up to a window where you can order through your car and get your coffee and donuts. And what ended up happening is people were paying it forward. So they were paying for the order of the person behind them in line. So imagine pulling up and realizing that somebody had already paid for your cup of coffee. And that's pretty amazing, right? So what would happen is then you could decide, do you want to pay for the person behind you? And we ended up getting these very long chains of people paying for the order of a stranger behind them in line. We told this story in a blog post and on social media, and we started to see this happening in so many other places around the United States. And it really showed the power of a great story to move people and motivate them to take action. So next up, Ekaterina is going to share some of her favorite brand stories.
Yes, but before we move on, guys, just who celebrates Talk Like a Pirate Day? I mean, how awesome is that? It is a lot of fun because people really get engaged. So creative things like that might sometimes sound cheesy to a brand, but they also really build emotional connections. Now, from fun to data-driven. So this is one of our favorite examples of how a company not only promotes, its brand and different features, like in this case, it is Spotify, and you know, and their playlist, etc., but has fun with it, right? So it is not this is an example of not a direct sell, but using the data that you have to have fun and celebrate the company and the brand. There's so many of those on Google. So if you go and Google it, you're going to see a ton of funny ones. This is just one that says, "Dear person who played sorry 42 times on Valentine's Day, what did you do?" Because we've all been there. Now, not me personally. I'm sure you guys have been there.
I don't know. I don't know if we want to know what that person did.
Well, but that's the mystery of it, right? It's the question you ask. But it is really genuine and fun way to use the information and data at your disposal without, you know, breaking privacy laws and you know, putting anybody out there on the spot, but really having fun. So it's not just, I guess this example shows you that go beyond what's obvious. What is not obvious? How can you celebrate your brand and your product by being human and having fun with it? So that's why we love this story. If you go to the next one, right? So
this one builds a bit. So
yes, this one is one of our favorite. It's actually not very recent, but it continues to be iconic. So there was a guy, Clayton, who liked to poke at brands and have fun with brands. And Clayton went on Twitter and tweeted, "Saw a bird, had crapped on a smart car, totaled it." And the whole point behind this was smart car is small, it's tiny, it is more of a toy in Clayton's eyes rather than an actual car. Well, what is fascinating about this experience is, one, a brand could have ignored Clayton, right? He honestly did not have, he's not an influencer. He did not have a ton of followers, but instead, a brand decided to actually prove him wrong.
Yes.
So
am I allowed to share the next one?
Go ahead. So
Ekaterina, it builds to two of them. So next is the response, and then the third is the big reveal.
Yeah, so that is what they actually responded with. And they said, "I'm sorry, it couldn't have been one bird. Sounds more like 4.5 million." And they get geeky and they go, "No, seriously, we did the math." And they attached an infographic to show you how many poops it takes from a pigeon, a turkey, and an emu, right? 3 different types of birds to actually break a car and total a car. And the response was very much real time. They didn't take a ton of time to sit on it and think on it and, you know, go consult every single department. They said, well, facts are facts. We'll just have fun with it. And it went viral. And the reason is not only because it's darn funny, but because very few brands actually are able and are set up within their companies to collaborate on a response such as this in such a fast manner. So not only this is a data-driven example, just like Spotify was, but it talks to the power of working together within your company to really decide, do you respond to something? And if you do, in which manner? And can you have fun with it just like smart car folks did? And so Clayton, we don't have a tweet here, but Clayton did respond back to them. He wrote a whole blog post. he did respond back to them, and his tweet was, all right, outsmarted by smart car, right? Because he was.
He was.
He totally was. And this conversation had gone viral, and he tipped his hat to them. Well done. So we wanted to bring you a little bit of laughter into this. And then another story, and the last one we would like to share with you, talks about something else, about featuring your customer. So if you can go watch this video, the link is on the screen. Trust me, I will not do it justice by describing it as well as you would if you watch the video, the feeling you get. But the thing is, a common mistake we see the companies try to, that they make, is when they try to manufacture stories to get the key messages across to sell their products. Oh, there's this feature, and then there's that feature. And this is not the point or the spirit of brand storytelling. It is about finding incredible stories from inside, but also outside of your company, and really bringing them to life. And when a story is well crafted and hooks us, it sells without having to go into actual selling. So Jess and I like to say, tell, don't sell, right? Tell the stories, don't sell your product. So an example, this example of Land of Rovers, the video was actually released for Land Rover's 70th anniversary, and shares the true story of Land Rover drivers in a remote area in the Himalayas. Now, the drivers, so the drivers rely on a fleet of 42 meticulously maintained 1957 Land Rover vehicles. Okay, let me repeat it. 1957, pretty old Land Rover vehicles. But what they do is they provide transport and take supplies to the villages along very treacherous mountain roads, villages you can't access otherwise, right? So to those people, those Land Rovers, and they call themselves the land of Land Rovers, right? Those mean food, human connection, and honestly, freedom to live their lifestyle high in the mountains, right? The way they choose to. So, and one of the drivers in the video says, Land Rovers is the reason there's still life here. The video is also a great reminder, right, of how powerful it is when a third party, such as your customer, tells your story for you. Again, the video sells without actually selling by showcasing the off-road capabilities of Land Rover and the quality of the vehicles, in this case, lasting for over 60 years. And quite honestly, Jess and I love the cinematography and the way the storyline unfolds. It's very inspiring. So go and watch it if you get a chance. And I think that's it for us, Jess.
Yeah, that's it. And that is it. We can move on to questions now.
Thank you very much, Ekaterina. Thank you very much, Jessica, for your time today. I think that as a brand, we have hundreds of stories, and we can create 1,000 more when we have clients like Clayton. But it's not only telling the story, but what we do with the information we have and the strategy we want to follow to tell the story. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yes, very, very, very eloquently said.
Okay, but because without knowing the basics, which are the laws of storytelling, I think that it would be definitely very difficult for us, the enterprises.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. It's, as we outline in the book, it's really important to understand the fundamentals, but also to really have a strong strategy in place before you get started. Because, you know, I'm a creative person. I know Ekaterina is a creative person, and we really bonded, like, oh, we could do this, we could do that. But if you just kind of jump in without having that kind of strategy and plan, you could actually get yourself in hot water, or maybe not be as effective as you want to be. So that's really why we wanted to kind of provide that kind of step-by-step kind of playbook on how to do it.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Sorry, we have here a question from Jose Antonio Garcia, I think. He say, how would you move the top senior executives with storytelling while trying to sell innovation?
Jess, would you like me to take that?
Yeah, why don't you take that one?
You know, one thing I found that works is actually piloting something or trying something small. There is, you know, there is something to be said for testing things out, and, you know, testing things out without everybody in the chain approving it. So let's say if you want to respond in a certain way and try something interesting or fun, you know, try it out with your smaller community or smaller audience. You know, make that decision and take a risk. And if you get really positive response, you can use that as an example. Look, this works. Folks loved it. There's always a risk, right? But if you, as a brand marketer, think through, is there any potential negative way that this could be interpreted? Don't do it, but don't be afraid to test and try. When you give a proposal to your executives, do two things. One, show them the stories of your competitors. I mean, nothing gets approval faster than your competition. And it doesn't have to be Latin America competition. Maybe your competition tries different thing in different countries, but they are a LATAM company. So nothing moves the needle faster than showing the examples of your competitors and what cool things that they're doing and trying. Try that. And again, go for small. Ask, can we just try this right here on this channel this one time or those 3 times and see if our numbers change, see if we see impact. Jess, anything to add?
Yeah, I would add to it too. I think what's always helped me, in addition to what Ekaterina said, is also just showing how it layers up into those goals that your executives have set for you, because they also want to see, okay, this isn't just a wild side idea. This fits under the goals. This is going to help us achieve them. And combined with the pilot approach, you know, you can say, okay, to achieve these goals, we're going to do kind of this tactic, this tactic, this tactic, this tactic. One of them is the storytelling pilot, and then you maybe complement with other activities.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, both of you. We have another question here, which is from Luz Garcia. She's asking if we can't put this into like reading your book and apply it for our personal brand as a professional people.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yes, and yes. Jess and I have done it. So that's why we can say yes.
I mean, I'm so inspired to tell stories in every facet of my life. And, you know, I just started a personal YouTube channel for travel vlogging because I love to travel. And I realized actually it does help my professional brand, and people that I know professionally are really enjoying following it. And I never thought something that I did like that would actually brand me professionally, but it is. So I think you can glean a lot of insights into when you're thinking about your professional goals or professional branding, or even a hobby or something you want to maybe turn into a company. You can really go through as you're kind of building that strategy and learn how you want to structure that. You know, what's the macro story that you want to tell? And then what are some of those micro stories that fit under that? And I think the book really does a great job inspiring you on how to set that up.
Okay.
I would also caution focus on something. So, you know, pick 1 or 2 areas of expertise that you're really, really good at, and focus on that and provide people value. Your brand will grow exponentially when you talk about, when you provide tips and tricks and share your expertise in a way that's easily consumable. Video, you know, quick list and tips and blog, you know, quick quotes or stats on social. But focus, because some of us are multi-talented and we love different things. Pick 1 or 2 things you really want to be known for and go for it.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much for this awesome answer. Here we have another question from Francisco Estrada Rojo. What do you have a story outside the organizational thing? For example, public institutions, like social messages, educational messages, or health messages that you can say to us?
So is that public, meaning is that more nonprofit examples?
Yeah.
I think nonprofits just use storytelling even better than we do. So remember the LS challenge, when they started a movement with their with buckets of
the ice bucket challenge.
Ice buckets. Yeah, the ice bucket challenge, where they started the whole movement of people videotaping themselves, pouring buckets of water on themselves, ice water, on themselves, and raising money for the cause. So nonprofits are actually very creative in coming up with some of those ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think as a nonprofit, you have so many opportunities, you know, through, you know, you have a very well defined mission and purpose. So a lot of companies sometimes struggle with, well, what's my macro story? What's my why? What's my purpose? And as a nonprofit, you know that. You can really lean into that. And really, that's where you can tell the story. You can illustrate the problem. You can illustrate the solutions that you're bringing to market. You can show the people that you're helping. And you can actually also work with them to tell their personal stories and really showing kind of where the money people, you know, or the goods that people are donating are going to, and putting that human face on kind of an issue or a problem is really powerful. And we do have a number of great examples in the book that really go into this.
I believe we have one around American Red Cross, I believe it was, where they were worried that they're known for just one way of help and support that they provide, one thing. But they help and support, you know, veterans once they came back from war. They help pregnant mothers. And so they went over and sent out a bunch of video cameras to some of their customers to record their stories and post them on social. And that went extremely well because they wanted to ensure that they're known for other things too. So definitely some great examples out there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have another question here. We all make mistakes, and you know it, we know it. But what's the most challenging things you have ever faced when using storytelling to position a brand?
That's a good question.
Well, I could start there, Jess, if you'd like. So think through different angles and different sets of customers and prospects you might encounter. One of the biggest issues is when you focus on one set of customers and offend another. And a lot of times that happens because you're siloed, right? Somebody in marketing makes a decision to do something and feature very specific subset of folks, and not thinking about how is my diverse set of customers going to respond to something like this? So take the time when you're doing storytelling pilots or using storytelling techniques and think through, will this be perceived as negative by a subset of my customer base? So that would be the one that's, I think, very obvious, that's been happening a lot across the world.
This just happened very prominently here in England, actually, with a government agency called Cyber First, and they put out a visual of a ballerina, and they said Fatima's next job could be in cyber. She just doesn't know it yet. And they're trying to promote careers in technology and cybersecurity. And they thought, well, this is a great message. People, might want to have new jobs during the pandemic. And it sparked a very kind of negative, kind of global feedback about how the arts are important. And we should be celebrating ballerinas and artists and the theaters, and we should, it sparked a conversation in England about funding for those industries that are so hurt. So it actually hasn't helped the original message as intended. So I think Ekaterina's words are incredibly important there. And I think, when you think about this as a business, really think through having kind of like a small focus group internally can be helpful. And also really kind of focusing on your purpose as a company. And I think when brands really stay true to their purpose, better stories emerge.
And your fan base will defend you. If something does happen that's negative, you will find that the fan base will defend you because they believe the same things you do. And that's why you build the fan base versus just look at it as building marketing campaigns.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We have here, it's not a question basically, but it's from Guillermo Dominguez, which is, he worked in the translation of your book into Spanish, which is, you can buy it. I'm telling this for the attendees. He said, do you agree if I say that what you are talking about is to stop focusing on the brand and turn customers into heroes through authentic histories?
Or through authentic stories, I think it is, because I'm reading his Q&A as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the book actually celebrates building a strong brand, and Ekaterina and I are very much evangelists of the power of a strong brand, because in order to tell a great story, you do need to have a strong brand. You need to have a strong sense of who you are as a business and a brand. You need to have a strong sense of who you stand for. And the best brand stories come from companies that have that strong sense of self. Now, on the flip side, we love customer-driven storytelling. And we actually write in the book that you as the business are not always the hero of your story. And I might tee that up to Ekaterina because I see her nodding and getting so excited. And maybe you want to finish that point. So we share kind of answering the question.
I mean, the reality is, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is that when your customer tells a story, it's way more credible than when you tell the story. As a matter of fact, don't forget your employees, because even when your employees, even though they work for you, tell a story or share their passion for a brand, that is also very, very impactful, more impactful than you talking about it. So empower your employees and empower your customers, or encourage them, invite them to tell their stories and then share them.
Okay, that was great. I love that response, actually. Well, I think we don't have any more questions now. We really appreciate your work and your talk today. I don't know if you want to say something else.
Sure. I think we'll go one and then one. I would just say a huge thank you to everyone for tuning in today. you know, as authors, to see your book come out in another language, and especially Spanish, to have it come out across Latin America, I mean, it is just the biggest honor. It's just such a proud moment to be here today, and I feel like I'm pinching myself because it's just so special. So really honored so many people, you know, would tune in today, and we had all of our social media channels up throughout the slide. So if you have more questions, you can reach out to us as well. But I will hand the baton to Ekaterina as well.
Absolutely. Very humbling and very honored to be able to speak to all of you today. Thank you all for participation and your fantastic questions. And our last words would be, remember, don't just build marketing campaigns, try to spark movements and connect with your customers emotionally whenever you can through storytelling. We hope to see you on social. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to you. Thank you very much for the McGraw Hill team, which is now here with us. And have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.